meets action.
We're here to spark your growth, lift your spirit, and help you crush your potential.
Rise awakening, hear the call. Through the static, we break the wall. Your station, your voice where dreams awaken in time. Rise awakening, now is the time.
Rise Awakenings, let's rise together.
Feel the hum beneath your skin, a pulse of light, let it begin. The night dissolves, the day will spin. Rise awakenings, hear the call. Through the static, we break the wall. Your station, your voice where dreams awaken and climb. Rise awakenings, now is the time. Echoes bloom, they bend and glide. A signal surging deep inside. From shadows grip, we rise and rise. Tune the whispers, find your way. Tomorrow starts with sound today. Rise awakenings, hear the call. Through the static, we break the wall. Your station, your voice when dreams awaken and climb. Rise awakenings, now is the time. Start with the quiet parts, the things you hide behind your laugh. Sit with the ache a while. Let every question breathe and ask, who was I trying to be? Who am I when I just stay? Name every tender scar and let them have their say. This is the blue from the soil of your sorrow. Petals from pain, new color in tomorrow. You walk through the dark with a soft, steady truth, holding your heart till your heart carries you. This is the blue.
let you play in small. Lay them out on the floor, see which ones never fit at all. Offer your younger self a kindness you never knew. Whisper you're safe with me and feel it turning true. This is the bloom from the soil of your sorrow. Petals from pain, new color in tomorrow. You walk through the dark with a soft, steady truth, holding your heart till your heart carries you. This is the blue. In the shadow you found treasure, in the breaking you found room. Every tear became a river, watering what's coming through. Now you rise not as perfection, but as someone deeply real. Every part you tried to silence learns it's finally allowed to heal. The stars are bloom from the soil of your sorrow. Petals from pain, new color in tomorrow. You walk through the dark with a soft, steady truth, holding your heart till your heart carries you. This is the This is the blue.
Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the premiere of The Bloom. Micah, oh my God, I know you're the man behind the curtain today, but wow, thank you. That really tops and takes the cake. I feel like you keep topping yourself with every new video and song. So thank you for blessing The Bloom with that gift of yours. So I want to start with a quick disclaimer and tell you how this show is going to look and present itself. So first, let me do the due diligence here and pop out my little disclaimer. As I said, welcome to The Bloom. Okay, so the content shared in this podcast is based on my personal experience and the knowledge that I've gained along my educational and healing journeys. The information is shared in the greatest degree of love and is intended to resonate with whoever it may to assist in your healing journey. Please feel free to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And remember, this is a judgment-free, safe space. Please refrain from any bullying, harassment, or toxic behavior. And if you cannot hold safe space with us, you will be removed. The chat questions will be answered in the order in which they are received and in relation to the topic. I will get to as many as time allows. And of course, if you feel called to dive deeper into your own personal situation, I am a transformational coach, trauma specialist, Reiki master teacher, and a fully ordained minister for hire. I'd be honored to guide you through your specific needs, and you could always book your time with me on my website, healingrose.org. So what is this topic about? I'm just starting right out the gate, going in hard and hot and heavy. I am starting with the topic of misogyny and how that has been detrimental to all genders in many, many different ways. So before we dive deep into that topic, I'm going to let that topic sit with you for a minute. I'm going to, of course, in Reverend Diane fashion, start with a prayer and an invocation to help us get into a heart-centered space, to be open to the heaviness that these conversations can bring. And And let's see if this will help us center ourselves and keep us in a space of openness. Beloved Creator, source of the greatest degree of love, we come before you with open hearts, honoring the sacred journey of remembering who we truly are. May we embrace each experience, pleasant and unpleasant, as a loving teacher, guiding us deeper into self-understanding, self-compassion, and self-love. Grant us the courage to release the identities and stories that were never ours, and the wisdom to see ourselves through the eyes of unconditional love and divine truth. As we move through each layer of discovery, may we integrate what we learned with grace, patience, and humility, allowing each new version of ourselves to emerge in authenticity and alignment. Help us remain open to growth, gentle with our wounds, and compassionate towards the parts of ourselves still learning how to love. May our intentions be rooted in the greatest degree of love, so that our spiritual growth unfolds naturally, deepening our connection to our intuition, our spirit, and our divine essence. Though the journey is never ending, may we walk with peace in our hearts, clarity in our minds, and trust in the knowing that we are always becoming more of who we truly are. And so it is. Whew. Okay. So I wanted to dive deep into this topic today because the society that many of us live in, I know we're coming from different parts of the world, but I feel like the world has been subjected to a patriarchal system in general. And in that patriarchy is misogyny. Misogyny, I feel like, is what maintains that patriarchy, because it is how I define misogyny, and y'all can Google it. I don't know what the Google definition is, but Reverend Diane sees misogyny as a permission slip for oppression, abuse, and exploitation to occur. And I wanted to talk about how this affects men and women. So men in the comments, men in the live or in the replay, please share your input or ask your clarity questions in the chat. So I wanted to talk about how that affects each gender, because ultimately, if there's this division, this separation of self that occurs when it comes to ourselves and learning how to speak kindly and think kindly and do kindly to ourselves, couple that with what society pressures you to believe in. I don't know about other parts of the world, but I know here in the USA, it's focused around distracting the females with these fantasy ideas of what life they're supposed to have, teach them how to be consumers and purchase things, not what they teach men on the opposite side, which is to learn how to invest, learn how to make their money work for them. So like already there's that that pay gap thing that gets instilled, aside from the legalities of keeping women less than men. Okay. So there's so many different parts of this. There's the pay piece, there's the gender role piece that was considered traditional, but actually, historically speaking, if you dig a little into history, you'll see that's not accurate. It's a system created to maintain control and power and divide and shift into a hierarchy that is male dominated. How that affects men, because you're giving this false idea that you have free ownership and access of the female and all that is what she has to bring to the table. We are the table, but you know what I mean? That's the mentality is well, what do you bring to the table? Because men are in this system trained to believe that they have entitled access to female labor, females' bodies, sexual exploitation in every avenue of the money, of the time, of the emotional energy, of the mental load and labor, of their paychecks, of their physical bodies. So in essence, the way the system is set up in this misogynistic patriarchy, it is set up to maintain this false sense of power in a man without teaching him connection to his emotion, completely separating him from himself so that he lacks the compassion and the consideration and the space and the depth to hold the woman up next to him. And I see this in every single couple that I work with, the deep instilled misogynistic ideas. And it all starts with the female's bodies being shamed at a very early age, and our sexuality being shamed at a very, very early age. We're taught what we're wearing, what we say, what we do, our eye contact, our smile, everything we do is incorrect. And soliciting sexual advances from the male, or giving permission to the male to be entitled to us, our being. So like there's deep conditioning here that I wanted to tackle. And I know that's kind of like a scary topic. But the reality is we all have this in us. I mean, if you think about it in everyday terms, in everyday life, how many moms with little boys have said, she's just a girl? That is the misogyny speaking. How many times do we allow a boy, and we tell our young girls, hey, if he's teasing you and making fun of you and being mean, it's because he likes you. That's misogyny. We're teaching the females that to be attacked and abused is a sign of how a man loves you or how a boy loves you. And we're teaching the boy that it's okay to abuse the female because that's how you're supposed. They're not at your level. You get to treat them like they don't exist, like they're an object that you own and that you decided that you can have your way with whenever you want. So if you look at dating, let's dive into that. Courting is a construct. It's always been a business transaction, historically speaking, to bring family together and maintain wealth. So historically speaking, it was never about love and connection and whatever. Those are the few lucky ones. And those are the stories, the fairy tales that get exacerbated, that get inflated. So with the misogynistic patriarchy, you have this unrealistic expectation on men that you have to make this ridiculous amount of money, have this ridiculous amount of height, have this ridiculous amount of cars that are fancy, or whatever the mentality is that makes you feel like there's this impossible standard for you as a man to provide for the woman that you're with. And then with that comes what society does is creates this idea in the man that to protect means beat somebody up or get jealous if some other dude comes near you, kind of thing. That's not at all what it means. It's disconnected you from yourself and your true divine masculine essence. So what it does is only leaves room for the anger emotion and the shame emotion to breathe and to expand. It doesn't leave room for you to feel the joy, for you to feel the connection, for you to feel the love, for you to feel safe, heard, understood, gratitude, validation. There's injustices that men experience, and I'm not a man, so I can only speak to how it affects me as the oppressed, okay? Because I've had a lifetime of these lessons and these observations, and all the communication that I've had with all the different people, and they don't teach this stuff in school. Okay, so this is life, the school of life. What I've understood or come to understand with the culmination of all of that is that men have to navigate through emotions they were never taught they were allowed to feel, whilst they have this inflated sense of self and entitlement because of the programming conditioning them to believe that that's the case. as well as feeling in shame and inadequacy for feeling any other kind of feelings, being made fun of by other men, being accused of not making enough money, not looking good enough, not taking care of themselves enough, not this and not. It's like drilled into your heads that you're not enough. And that's also true for females, but that's because of that misogyny. So like we're directly affected, your lack of self-worth because of how the patriarchy makes you believe that you're worth something, but you're actually not worth something at the same time, directly affects us. And so we end up feeling your low worth and how you project that onto us because you got that entitlement and that permission slip to do so as a manner of maintaining that I'm above you and you do what I say because I'm the head of the household. That mentality carries into, and then we feel like shit about ourselves. That's what happens. We are directly affected. And then we masculinize ourselves and be all tough and like, we don't need you. And now we're not soft anymore. And we're getting hard and we're matching your energy and reflecting it back to you. So then men get abused now. So now we just have this tennis match of abuse going back and forth between men and women instead of saying, hold on, hold the show. What am I doing that is not in alignment with a heart-centered space of love, of compassion, of consideration and respect, first and foremost for myself and who I am as a person and who my authentic self is. And then secondly, how I am negatively impacting those around me. And is there a way instead that I can impact others in a positive light? How am I impacting others with my thought patterns, behaviors, and actions that I was deeply conditioned to have by a system that is outdated and rooted in fear, shame, sadness, aggression, abuse, exploitation? It's shit. The whole system is shit. So I wanted to dive deep into that topic. It's affected my self-worth because I remember pockets of time in my life where I didn't have that negativity and that action towards me projected, where I was thriving. Okay, I'm good. There's no issues with myself when I'm with me. But the second the misogyny, whether it's internalized misogyny that a woman has that is projected at me, or the internalized misogyny that a man has that's projected at me, all of a sudden I smell wrong, I look wrong, I speak wrong, I do things wrong. Everything about my existence is to be criticized and shamed and judged, not supported, not held, all of that, whilst simultaneously taking me and convincing me to supply them with their needs while simultaneously putting me down. That is very confusing and very destructive, not only to the nervous system, totally destabilizes you because words don't match actions. You know, what's said isn't matching what does. What's said could be damaging. If there's no internal conscious awareness of self and self-reflection, we're not going to move forward. We're not going to see ourselves as unique individuals that needs to decide for themselves what makes them feel right in the heart. And that's usually aligned with unconditional love and compassion, without judgment, without shame, without guilt, but with remorse and accountability and repair. That's how we move ourselves forward. So my self-worth takes an enormous hit in this patriarchal, misogynistic world that we live in. That's a daily struggle, and that's the reality. Everything in my life gets criticized through that lens. That's a harsh reality. I work daily to work on my self-worth. I would love to bring in my surprise co-host, Carrie, who's not a surprise, because I know she too has certainly experienced a lot. Thank you for sharing your experience with us today.
Oh,
Dive
gosh.
into the question of somebody's.
My favorite topic.
Whew.
It's not my favorite topic. Okay, so I guess it's my turn to share a little bit. When we talked about, there's so much in this topic. It could take us like 10 shows. And so when I thought about it, there was a couple incidents that came up that happened in my life that just still to this day just like don't resonate with me. And I think that when I think back on the time of my life when they happened too, the way I responded to it was just so unbelievable. I was telling them this morning, I think that a lot of my roots of feeling insecure about my body and about how I looked started because my father thought it was okay to have Playboys in the house when we were growing up. Go in their bathroom to use their bathroom and stack of Playboys, which I always thought was disgusting in the first place. You're a married man, you got daughters, kids in the house and everything else, and this shit's sitting here. But as a curious small child, and as we all are, I would look through them and think, no one's ever gonna love me. I'm not gonna ever look like that. I'm not going to take off my clothes and pose in a magazine for guys. And there's another thing right there. They all lust after these girls in these magazines, but then they call her a slut if they'd ever meet her and knew that she did that. But like, okay, it's okay for me to look at you, but I would never touch you because you're a whore. I mean, that's part of the whole game. But I grew up thinking, I'm not pretty. I'm not attractive. I will never be attracted to a guy because I'm not blonde and blue-eyed, because my dad was one of those people that catcalled or whatever, a woman would come on the TV and he'd be, ooh, and you're sitting there thinking. And my mom is right there and I'm thinking, this is okay with her? This is really gross. I mean, your wife is right there. And then she would come right out and say, Dale, why didn't you marry somebody who was blonde and blue-eyed then? Why'd you marry somebody with black hair and dark eyes if you wanted a blonde, blue-eyed blonde? You can't help who you fall in love with. What?
That is a beautiful example of misogyny in its glory.
Yeah.
Because that's words that you don't realize are damaging. You're telling a woman,
your children, even. You're not just damaging your wife, you're damaging your daughters who are sitting there learning that they're never going to be good enough for even their husband who chose them. You're never going to be good enough. There's always going to be somebody prettier out there, somebody younger, somebody hotter. And how are we supposed to, as women, go through life always knowing that there's somebody prettier, hotter, younger than us out there? And it's okay for these guys to walk away. That's normal. When I talked to my mom about the ex, I know that one of the main reasons he didn't want to be with me is because I was older than him. I wasn't 20 years younger than him like most of his girls. I wasn't somebody he wanted on his arm so that he could show off to the boys. Yeah. I might have had a few wrinkles on my face because I might have lived a few years. They would rather deal with someone immature, because sit there and tell you they're immature, they're jealous all the time, they're doing this, they're doing that, driving you crazy as a guy. But when a good woman comes along and tries to love you the way you should be loved, you turn her away because she's 5 years older than you and has a few wrinkles, and that's not going to be good to show off to the boys.
So let's talk about the opposites, because I know I touched upon it in a scattered way because this topic is so broad. We might have to do a few shows on this. Let's focus in on how it destroyed our sexuality and our divine nature as they are meant to be. Men have been trained to believe that with that sense of entitlement and the way society pushes you to look a certain way in order to be found attractive, to act a certain way in order to be sexy enough, to present yourself in a certain way. It's like you want a freak in the bed, but a lady in the street. The opposites can be true. The issue becomes when you don't allow that female to feel free in herself. When you dictate
who's going to be a freak in the sheets if they're feeling insecure with the man that they're with.
Correct. When you put a woman down and you make her feel like she is less than, based on what her body looks like. Okay, so here's where it gets muddy. Let's just speak this right now, because I grew up in purity culture and in a Catholic Italian household. So, I mean, I've been taught since birth that I should be ashamed of myself. just period.
Because I'm a woman.
You're not allowed to make the wine with us because you're on your period. You shouldn't look at boys in the eye. Don't smile at them because you're inviting in advances. It's your fault. If anything happens to you, it's totally 100% on you. You asked for it. That sounds familiar today, doesn't it? That doesn't seem to go away, does it? So I'm not dateable because I'm not allowed to date. And that means that with the purity culture that if I'm not allowed to do anything to maintain that purity culture, then I am seen as someone who's undesirable. So you don't want the females who are respecting or taught how to respect themselves to, well, that was to the extreme. There's a central point here. But then at the same time, you want them to be slutty. Well, which one is it? Do you want one you want an untouched slut? That doesn't make any sense. None of that makes, first of all of those terms are incredibly judgy. We're not existing in our natural state of being. We're existing in a society that's telling us what to think and feel and look and be and selling it to us in the movies, in the advertising, in the programming, in all of that stuff. That culture, especially with religions make the male and female dynamic even more toxic because I think religion and politics go hand in hand. If you look at the history, it's not, I know. I know from the research that I've done, go do the research. Historically speaking, the translation of the Bible that you're reading depended on who was in office and how they worked together to maintain that power, money, and control. Do your homework. If you really want to learn the true divine essence of how you can work together, please expand your knowledge to include Christ consciousness in the female form and in the male form and the masculine form. And if I'm going to shatter your world in one way or another, then let me start with investigate the history of the gospels that got cut out. For example, Mary Magdalene and Jesus were husband and wife. She wasn't a prostitute. That's patriarchy and misogyny, so that they elevate this hierarchy of this male being in order for you to feel guilty about yourself for not doing what they set as the rules, instead of actually listening to the two together as a team, sharing the message of unconditional love and compassion and being a solid unit of one that works symbiotically together, interdependently, in a way that expresses and shares that divine love with everyone. That was a massive, massive threat to all those patriarchal men that were in charge throughout history. So the story kept twisting and twisting and twisting. And now we have all this, even the creation story, if I'm going to shatter you even forward, even more.
The mother had to be a virgin. Come on.
But we also didn't come from a rib. Females have the ability to give birth. That doesn't even make sense in physiological state. Like, there's things that were interpreted in a way to suit whoever was in power to maintain that power. And I need you to dig deep into the history and expand your knowledge on what the reality is. We have the internet now. So it's important for us to just review things that we've been taught that are demonized ideas, and review things and question our belief systems and consciously ask ourselves, how am I showing up with internalized misogyny that's damaging my experience and limiting me from moving forward? Do you have anything more to add before here we go?
Hard because everything you try to approach, there's always an excuse. Well, that's just boys being boys. That's just men. Or, well, men are programmed to go for younger women and cheat because they're supposed to populate the earth, and so it's a natural thing for them to go out and chase other women and shit. Grow the fuck up.
Right.
You have a brain. You have the control of your body.
Right.
You can stop doing that shit. You just don't want to. And
No.
when you have an excuse to back you up, why should you?
That's the deep conditioning, that sense of entitlement.
Yeah. Why
Yeah.
should I have to act any differently? I mean, I don't have to be a good guy. Nobody else is. They all cheat. They all go out and screw around. They chase after younger women. It's entitled. I'm entitled to do that as a man. What if we
Right.
flip the switch and we women started acting like men and started treating them the way that they've treated us?
Some
Imagine
do.
what-
Some do.
Well, yeah.
And that's the men that have become abused. Like literally.
But we just keep passing it back and forth because nobody wants to grow the fuck up.
It's a matter of growing up in the sense where this is what we're doing this show about, is to raise awareness of what programming that was deeply conditioned in you. I don't want to shame anybody. You don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. Okay, let's go to the question in this conversation, because this falls in line. Let's see. I wonder what I don't know that word. Denigrating or deeper from my husband.
I think it's denigrating.
Oh, gotcha. Denigrating or deeper from my husband for never giving me a present on my birthday or other days, or if he gave me something, it was an M&M's. Let's talk about that for a minute.
I mean, mine did the same shit. I don't know.
That's the thing, because that sense of entitlement is so deeply ingrained. The idea that the lie that men are sold, or females, depending on which way their family dynamic went, because it's not necessarily always gender, but sometimes the energy. So the way that they were taught to be entitled to all of you means that they don't have to put in any effort or work or anything like that. There's nothing that needs to be done. They have no work to do whatsoever.
I go to work every day and pay the bills.
Right. Who cares?
That's weird. I go to work every day. I shouldn't have to do anything else.
I know. And that's the mentality. That's the mindset. Yeah. Instead of what needs to be instilled and needs to be modeled and exampled is effort. Effort creates connection. Effort shows consideration. Effort shows care. Effort shows you want to see that person feeling joyful. When there's zero effort or low effort and bare minimum men or females, depending on, again, it's an energy sometimes, not necessarily gender, you end up creating a feeling in that woman that she's not worth anything. This is where you attack our self-worth. We don't deserve that. They did it in the beginning. And where did it go? Because they're taught, like courting, do show up as her dream man so that you can earn and gain access. Once you have access and you seal the deal, you're good. She's yours. Start putting her to work. That's the problem. That's the freaking problem. So on that note, low effort is exactly why women struggle with their self-worth, or the feminine struggles with the self-worth. Okay, because there's women out there who with internalized misogyny that do this to men. And then men feel that and they overgive and overgive. We overcompensate at some point to make up for, or to try to set an example for the person who feels entitled to us and just decides to take more. Oh, well, they'll give me that. Let me see if they'll give me this too. That's the misogynistic idea, the misogynistic lie. The lie is men aren't real. I mean, women aren't real people. Women are just there for you to do. So how do you know the difference from fact from crap? Okay, so that's a great question. Consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency over time with different circumstantial dynamics that will force true self to be revealed.
And remember, actions speak louder than words. If
Right.
just because they say, "Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you, you're everything to me," doesn't mean shit if they're not showing it.
Correct, because that's the programming. The misogynistic programming is to show up properly in every way. Most of boys were not educated at home to honor your wife. Exactly. Special, right? Remembering special to
My
100%.
brother's doing the same shit to his wife.
So, as a trauma specialist, I can say through my knowledge and experience that the dad teaches you how to treat the mom teaches you how to treat yourself. Imagine why this cycle keeps getting repeated. Men are abuses, affects the self worth of the woman. She treats herself like shit, and the kids treat themselves like shit. And some of them either turn into the mom or the dad. So, who's going to be abusive? Who's going to be complacent? Who's going to be both, depending on the circumstance? It's a disaster.
I ended up the emotional one. My brother's just like my father, and my sister's like in between. She can be real nasty, or she can give too much. It's like flips back and forth. Just
Right.
like you said, it's like each one of us turned out differently.
Right. The society is structured with such extreme opposites. We're all going to have issues. I can't even tell you how many times in my life you're too fat, you're too skinny, you're showing too much cleavage, you're not showing enough cleavage.
We want you to be sexy so that we're attracted to you, but then we don't want you to be sexy because we don't want anybody else to be attracted to you. It makes no fucking sense, guys. None.
Right. And the issue is when you notice that we're too attractive, you start to feed us and ugly us up in your mind, because that's what misogyny teaches.
And then dump us.
And that is not saying that there's anything wrong with any body shapes and sizes.
No.
I'm talking specifically about the misogyny trains people with this porn star vision of what you're supposed to look like. That's unrealistic, completely unrealistic. But then you also want church lady. What if we didn't have a male figure in our lives and we're pretty much raised by all females? I mean, I had my stepfather and grandfather, but hardly ever interacted with them. It was pretty much only my mom and grandmothers. Then you have masculinated feminines in your experience from the clients that I've spoken. Yes.
That's my son. Yeah.
Okay.
He was raised mainly by women, and he's not like that.
I've had both in my own household, but my clients that I've had all female have given me different experiences. So in the households where the mom had already done her healing, and the root of the question answer is, it depends on their level of healing and understanding and openness to aligning with their true divine self. If they are still swept up in their internalized misogyny, they're going to turn into that toxic male. That's the experience that I've gained through my various clients with that specific dynamic. I hope that helps. My mother-in-law taught my husband to treat his wife how he wanted his mom to be to treat his mom treated, to treat his wife how he expected his sons to treat their wives and daughters. If he didn't want a daughter of his, if he had one like that by a man, then he had no, that didn't get finished.
Then he had no business treating his wife that way as an example of what is acceptable.
So my follow-up question is, how is his mom treated and how does his mom want to be treated? Because she could also be toxic. So what does that mean? Be more specific with what that
I think she's talking about Robin being a good guy and learning.
Okay.
And that's, yeah. I mean, my son is kind of in the middle of, like, still, because society still makes, regardless of what I've taught him, and I was still very unhealed. So when he was younger, so it wasn't great, but he does have more respect for women than a lot of men do.
And that's
because
the
he does stop and think about that. And if most men, I've posted this on repeat on Facebook because I hope it makes somebody think in your relationship as a man. If you have a daughter, Are you treating your woman the way you would want a man to treat your daughter? If not, change.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had that personal experience. We've all experienced sexual harassment, and I'm speaking for all women very boldly, because on some level, whether females are aware of it or not, because again, abuse has been normalized, you have experienced something on some level. Before I get into the question, Stephanie, hang on one second, because I want to share this story. I was the office manager of an insurance company, and I worked with 15 men, mostly under 30. One guy was 40 years old. The one guy who was 40 years old, I mean, I dealt with sexual harassment every damn day of the week. Okay.
I had a guy who used to put me in his lap at his desk every day when I'd come in to deliver the mail.
I finally said something to the 40-year-old because he was the only one in the office with a kid, who was married and with a kid, and he had a 4-year-old daughter. When he was harassing me, I asked him, I stopped, I turned to him, and I said to him directly in his eyes, "Is this how you want your daughter to be treated? Think of how you're treating me. I can't help the way I look. Is this how you would want somebody to talk to your daughter someday?" I stopped him dead in his tracks, and guess what? He must have had a meeting with the entire office, because no one ever said another word to me again. It's real. It exists.
It's like I was telling you yesterday, when I was in junior high school, there was a day when I had, I think it was five guys pull me into the boys' bathroom, hands down my pants, hands up my shirt, touching me, and a male teacher walked in. Of course, it happened to be a male teacher that I had a crush on too, to make it even worse, Guy teacher walks in, catches these guys with me half undressed, because there's 5 of them and 1 of me. And all he does is break it up and say, "Get out." He doesn't yell at them. He doesn't send them to the office. He doesn't ask me if I'm okay. He doesn't send me to the nurse. He doesn't do anything other than get out of here.
Because it's so normalized. So that's the men don't feel comfortable or safe themselves to stand up for what's right, because they don't even know. It's normalized. They're like, "Oh, that again, boys will be boys." Let's get to
Exactly.
let's go to bubble kittens.
Yeah.
I was taught from the age of 3, I'm only alive to be used and abused, to shut up and look cute, do what I'm told and clean up other people's messes and take care of everyone else. My needs didn't matter and couldn't be afforded. That's the damn truth for so many of us. What is that? I mean, what I was saying before, we live in a system of being oppressed, exploited, and abused. It's permission. And the lie that men are sold is that they're entitled to that, and they're not allowed to have feelings because they're shamed by other men for having feelings. They're called a simp. They're called a whatever. I mean, like throughout history, they're shamed for feeling what they're supposed to be feeling. And now more than ever, there's this standard for each that is unobtainable, and that pits us into a competition against each other. There's no consideration at the end of the day. We are trained and programmed to and conditioned to nurture, serve, care for, leave room and space for repeat offenses, tolerate abuse left and right. Hush, hush, we don't talk about it. We don't want to rock the boat, keep the peace, placate, completely silence ourselves so that we don't make ourselves too authentic and our beautiful, powerful, feminine self, because that will make the male look bad because he doesn't have the same effort in his own presence, because he's been told from day one he's fantastic without lifting a finger. And we've been told that we have to prove that we're lovable, but we're still not worth it. That's the mentality. Let me read this, polyamorous. In order to accomplish this, we must make the men wear mini skirts to pick up things for us, and bend over to pick up things for us. Oh my God.
It's just so disgusting. It's just proof that that's all we're good for.
That's what we want to change. So
Sex.
I want
That's it.
I want men to realize that the programming they received was a lie and it's fake and it's giving them this false sense of entitlement and robust ego, which when your female counterpart decides to hold you accountable for what you were
Oh God,
speaking to
you're
her in
rich.
the beginning, drops you right into your little boy, insecure, inadequate, shame, all
And
that stuff that
they're
you project
nagging
on
me.
her.
Stop nagging me. Stop
Oh,
trying to change me.
right. So let's talk about that, because the issue then becomes, you don't have to heal, but we do, because you keep telling us there's things wrong with us. So we keep changing and evolving and shifting and growing and evolving and changing and shifting, but you don't have to lift a finger. Misogyny lied to you. Patriarchy lied to you. You do have to evolve as a human being. Do you know how great you could be if you just evolved? We see your potential. You are blocked from seeing your own potential because they lied to you and told you you were something that you were not, in order for you to gain access to all the support and free labor that you need to get you through your career, to put your name on children, right? We do all the work, but you put your name on them.
But you get the last name. I mean,
Right.
it makes no sense. The whole thing
To
makes no sense.
have access to all of our money, all of that. When I was a child growing up through the years, was extremely violent in the home. I was fearful of my father. Yes, this is Bus 18, Rios, BJ, Bonnie.
I was scared to death of my dad. Scared to death of him. I'm still scared of him.
Ruling with fear is how misogyny maintains control and power. Manipulation, gaslighting, lying. You basically, how many times have we all heard from a man a blatant lie that makes us question our reality because they're ashamed that we're correct?
Yeah.
Accountability is something I'm going to talk about tomorrow night, because I'm teaching about emotional EQ tomorrow night. Accountability. Women are forced into accountability from a young age because we don't have a choice but to know that we're the problem, even if we're not. It's automatic default, we're the issue. So that forces us into practicing accountability at a very early age, because we're going to justify you in order to placate you because we're afraid for our lives. We're not safe.
Even in relationships where we're not being abused, it's become so conditioned.
Mhm.
I won't get into an argument with a man. Well, if I ever get in another relationship again, I will start sticking up for myself. But I wouldn't stick up for myself because I feared confrontation so bad, because I knew that even if I was right, I was going to be wrong. So why bother?
So misogyny teaches men to expand on shame and anger, which gets projected. So if your woman or feminine energy in your space is sharing wisdom and observations that will help you reach your highest potential, and misogyny has you believing that they're criticizing you and they're telling you that there's something wrong with you, and you're not allowed to have feelings because you've been shamed and humiliated to the nth degree by so many other men for having emotions, your resort is defensiveness, okay, accusation, shifting blame, all of those things. Cash angels, can it be that this is because men feel never enough and therefore we feel we don't appreciate them enough? They by default are ingrained and conditioned to believe that they're not enough whilst being told that they're the king. It's again that opposing belief that's so confusing but conditioned. How does that look? What does that look like? Because that doesn't make any sense, right? Okay. Well, let's start at home. The girls are the problem by default, so the boys can do no wrong. We raise boys that don't have to help around the house, that don't have to clean, don't have to pick up after themselves, don't have to do this. They are accountable to nothing and responsible for nothing in the misogynistic patriarchy.
Facts.
How
Except
that
y'all, baby.
correct. So now you have someone who's entitled to all of these services, who doesn't have to put in any effort whatsoever, who now comes into a situation and a dynamic where someone's telling him, yes, you do. Well, of course, they're all of a sudden going to feel like they're not enough because they've never been not enough before. They've always been the bomb diggity. Now they're not enough all of a sudden because someone is telling them, who's not their family, mommy, whatever, or whatever the circumstances are. But then the other side of that is because patriarchy and misogyny, the fathers are disconnected from themselves if they're in the picture, and they're projecting, "You're not good enough, son," onto their kid.
Yep.
So, and again, it's an energy thing. So sometimes there's masculine energied females who are doing that. It depends on the dynamic and the home. Okay, it's not all hetero. It's everyone, depending on the energies. Everything you just said, and I'm really not trying to just insert myself or mansplain, but all those are all the feelings I have always had about myself. I was wrong. Yes. I was supposed to take care of the house, family. I would never argue back. So you probably overgave a little bit, Michael, and went to the other extreme at some point in your life and probably received help from somebody, because when you have a good heart and a good soul, it's a matter of just understanding and learning what you need to unlearn. It's a matter of just seeing where you can tweak your language, shift your perspective, open your mind to understand things at a deeper level. So, because otherwise you're going to feel even worse about yourself, because when you have a good heart and you start getting confused because I thought I was this, but now I'm being told this, I am a good person, I swear. You don't feel like you're enough. And the not receiving gratitude part from the previous question, why should we be grateful for bare minimum? Like, we're running circles around you, and our female friends and family are running circles. So that's why you hear some things floating around on the internet about how, an average man is, or an average woman, an extraordinary man is an average woman kind of thing. I've heard that flying around too. That's again a product of the misogynistic patriarchy. Michael, I welcome you to ask and speak what your experiences are too, because we need the male voices to say it's okay. When my mom and dad found out that she was pregnant with me, I'm sorry, I don't know how to translate that.
Ever.
Oh, okay. Heard that there were no happy feelings about the fact that I was coming, and it takes years to get over. Yes, 36. Yes, I'm enough for myself, and that's all I need. Yes, absolutely. Let me talk about that a little bit more, but I can empathize with the struggle and can see how it is an issue for most women. Yes, ever. Thank you. Yes. And let me talk about that a little bit more too, because the nervous system runs the show when we're all in survival mode. When our children are created and birthed under duress, under abuse, under exploitation and oppression, the joy of that whole process doesn't exist. We're just trying to survive pregnancy and make sure we get it right and not inconvenience anyone and not talk about what our bodies are doing to us. We're literally having the life sucked out of us, and from scratch, without a 3D printer, taking from our own physical body and putting it into making a human. I want you to visualize what that process might even look like. That's not fun to go through.
There's no empathy for that because women do it every day.
But when you have the mindset outside of that of a child being a burden right out the gate before that child even comes out, that energy, that feeling, that vibration is getting built into that child. Your nervous system is also putting that emotional energy into that child. Both of my kids were born under duress, in abuse. I didn't want kids with him, but I had them because I didn't have a choice, because we placate and just take our own life dreams and goals and needs and desires off the table completely to stay alive. And at that time, there was no such thing as divorce in my family. You do not do that. You do not do that. So, and yes, I am a scapegoat, the scapegoat and the black sheep. And yes, I put shame to the family and was dishonored and called a whore and all those wonderful things by my father, because I did get a divorce. And presence is not present. We have a lot of toxicity where men's idea of being present with someone is enough. No, it requires you to have emotional connection with it yourself and be secure with yourself and love yourself so that you can be a container for the multitude of emotions that naturally females will cycle through. They're fine by themselves. They'll get themselves through it. They're not looking for the fix. Men are programmed to believe that they are supposed to fix everything. That's not what women need. We're the logistics and operations specialists. Remember that? If we ask you to put away your socks, you don't do it. Why would we ask you to fix something when you don't fix anything else? That kind of like understanding of the extreme that doesn't make sense. And again, setting all these impossible standards with no examples of what that actually looks like. The examples that are held in the misogynistic patriarchy are those that are maintaining that power and separation and competition and control. Right? I know we're going long here, so I don't want to. Anyone else have anything to add before we disappear off this topic and say goodbye until next Monday? And I hope this was good for all y'all. Let's see. So, Michael, can we show this one? Michael, real quick. Do you mind if we show this one? Here we go. Okay. So this is in response to Cash Angel, which I got to find. Hang on. Where are you? Where are you, Cash Angel? Men feel entitled, then why would they drug a woman before raping them? Okay, let's talk about this, the drugging before raping. Because they're cowards who couldn't handle actually trying to fight for it. So they take the easy way out. They're cowards who do not deserve the oxygen they're taking from the rest of creation. Okay, so I hear the frustration in there, and I hear the pain in there, and I hear the embarrassment in there. However, I am going to say, I want everyone to see and understand things from a perspective of compassion, because at the end of the day, what we don't know, we don't know. When we're brainwashed, when we're conditioned, deeply programmed into certain belief systems, we're going to behave like toxic fucks. We're just going to do that. So I don't want any shame flying around, and I don't want any attitudes of disgust in that way. I understand the frustration, but I also want you to know, like, it is frustrating. Righteous anger is great. Everyone needs to be seen from the light of their own level of ignorance and their own capacity. The misogyny and the entitlement gives men permission to rape women. That's the problem. We're not taught that women are human beings with feelings. We're taught we get to conquer and own that.
And let me tell you something else. The women who come from the misogynistic families, not only do they get raped by someone who thinks they're entitled to just do whatever the fuck they want to you, but you can't even go home and tell anybody because you can't tell your parents because your own father will say that you asked for it.
Right.
And then you spend the rest of your life trying to deal with that pain that you couldn't even tell anybody about when it happened.
Yeah.
And
Thank
that's
you,
what misogyny does.
Yeah, we can continue this conversation. We might need to make this another one for next week and continue this conversation. So let's talk about this again next week. Okay, we'll just carry it forward. On that note, I appreciate all of you for being present with me, and you can find me. Remember, I'm a transformational coach, trauma specialist. I also do Sikem Sikim Reiki, and I'm a Reverend for Hire, fully ordained with the Alliance of Divine Love. That's my direct booking site, and of course, you can find me on all the socials. And I love you all so, so much, and I'm so proud of you for facing this with me. Lunaria.
There's me. I won't be here every week, but there's my stuff right there. It's all there.
Yes, yes. She is also a brilliant soul who can help you, guide you, and understand you and speak the same language so that you feel heard and understood. Thank you for being here with us. We appreciate you so much, and enjoy now this amazing remix that Micah has so generously created for this ending. I love you all so much. Go in peace, grow, and remember, it's a never-ending journey. Okay? Do it with compassion. Love you.
From the soil of your sorrow, petals from pain, new color in tomorrow. You walk through the dark with a soft, steady truth, holding your heart till your heart carries you. This is the This is the blue.
Hey, this is Brindle Wolf.
And I'm Lunaria.
You're listening to Rise Awakenings, part of the Rise Radio Network where advice meets action.
We're here to spark your growth, lift your spirit, and help you crush your potential.
Rise awakening, hear the call. Through the static, we break the wall. Your station, your voice where dreams awaken in life. Rise awakening, now is the time.
Rise Awakenings. Let's rise together.